Yo, been a little bit since I made a video. I feel like I should have started making these types of videos before I do the actual swap videos, just to show you guys specifically the parts that I'm using on that car or truck, so that you guys don't ask me in the comments, where'd you get this part, where'd you get that one, do you have a link to this, that, blah, blah. I'm going to show you the parts that I'm using on this Camaro. These, you can use any of these parts. So this is going to be strictly parts for bolting it in and getting it running. This not going to show you intake, accessories, headers, anything. If it doesn't have to relate specifically to just bolting the engine transmission in and doing the fuel system and the harnessing computer, and then it's not going to be in this video. All that will be in the video of when I actually do the swap. So let me show you. These parts will also work. So they will work in your 67 to 69 F-body Camaro, your 68 to 74 Novas, I don't know when they made the Pontiac Ventura. I know they made them up to, I know 72. I don't know if they made them from 70 to 72 or 68 to 72 or 69 to 72. I just know the Pontiac Venturas that are the same body style as the Novas, just Pontiac. This will work for these parts. What else? Nova, Camaro, Ventura. I'm trying to think of any other vehicle these would work on. Those vehicles, they all share the same subframe, so it's all identical underneath. The only thing that's different is the bodies themselves. But yeah, this will also work for those. We will start with the priciest. So let me backtrack a minute. Whenever I do these swaps, I try to get the customer to go more of let's say the cheaper route, because cheap is relative, especially when if you have a 67 through 69 Camaro, that by itself wasn't cheap to begin with. So it's hard to say I tell them to go the cheap route or I show them the cheap route. I more so just show the cheaper route, because I know Holley makes bolt-in kits that have everything you need, but it's like well over $1,000. I'm sure there's other companies by now that make kits too. 9 times out of 10, you can do the swap cheaper if you piece it out. But a lot of people that are new to this, which is mainly what I deal with, and just people that come to me, which I appreciate, they want it as easy as possible. They just want to say, where is it? Does it all come as one? Give it to me. So when I try to help people out that contact me, I'll steer them a bunch of different ways, like get your motor mounts over here, your transmission mount over here, your fuel line over here, your headers over here. I try to stay away from the kits, because they're just so expensive, and you could spend probably a fraction of that if you just kind of piece out the parts. But you have to do a lot of research, and you got to go back and forth. And then a lot of people, they're like, well, it's made in China. And I try to explain to them, well, everything is made in China, which, if you don't believe me, this is just, I didn't want to go off track, but I'm going to go off track a minute for this video. So this is a cam sensor I'm going to put in the engine. And I said, well, make sure, I'd prefer to get the AC Delco sensors, because, those are the best ones you can get. And the AC Delco cam sensor is like 60 something bucks, and the Amazon version is like 20 bucks. I was like, yeah, I always prefer the name brand sensors, just because the chances of them going out are far less than the Chinese one. Well, I got the cam sensor in today, and what do you know? So it even says China on the sensor. So just about everything is going to be made in China. There's no way to go around it. But let's get back. I'm going to show you fuel pump, fuel line, motor mounts, transmission mount, and harness and computer. Make that 6 on one hand. I actually couldn't find the motor mounts, so I'm going to show you the motor mounts we will be using, but not these specific ones, even though they're exactly like this. They're cheaper. They're like 20 bucks on Amazon. They look like this. So these are ICT swap plates. They're called swap plates in general. The big holes bolt to the engine. The little holes bolt the motor mount bolts to the plate. We will be reusing the motor mounts that are in the car right now. So the motor mounts that are bolted to the small block Chevy, you take them off and you bolt them to this. It has a 1-inch forward and back, so you can adjust the engine transmission where you want it to sit. This will be getting a 4L60. It has a short tail turbo 350, so that means it has a little bit longer drive shaft. The 4L60, so your turbo 350 probably ends about right there, the short tail. This has 4 gears in it, so it's a little longer, and then this would probably be considered a long tail shaft if you were thinking of short tail shaft, mid tail shaft, long tail shaft as far as turbo 350s go. So with the plates, you're going to want to mount it an inch back so that the whole engine transmission is an inch forward, if that makes sense. So to go an inch forward, mount the plates back here. To go an inch backwards, towards the firewall, mount the motor mounts up here. To stay where you're at, mount them in the middle. But the reason I'm doing that is because I plan to reuse the same drive shaft that's coming out of the car, because the Turbo 350 shares the same slip yoke as a 700 R4 and a 4L60. So one less thing that has to be messed with as far as needing to get one made and balanced and whatnot. Next is your fuel pump. I recommend these to absolutely everybody that I come across in Facebook, LS groups, anywhere. This is the drop-in Holley fuel pump. Drop-in, I mean, it is exactly the same as the sending unit that comes out of the factory gas tank. It's an EFI setup, but it bolts in exactly the same way the sending unit does now. So you don't have to get an aftermarket tank. You can if you want, but this is $450 for this drop-in fuel pump. I've been using it in my I have one in my Cuda. I actually use that I'm pretty sure I've used that in every swap I've done so far, except for the Vega and the 93 OBS, just because those were different setups. But this, I am not gonna put the link in the description. I hate when y'all ask me that a million times. I've shown you everything, and I will try to get the numbers so that you can go look it up yourself. I've made one video with the link showing all the cheap parts you can use in a swap that's kind of universal for most swaps, but I'm not going to sit here and do every single link to everything. This is the computer we'll be using. I got this off of eBay. If you go to eBay and you type in LS Swap ECU, literally a whole list will come up, and you just pick whichever one you want to go with. You email them, you tell them what engine, what transmission, rear end ratio, and some of them you should be able to get a tune for if you have a cam. It'd basically be called a mail order tune, but that's probably costs a little bit more. I haven't done one of those yet for me personally. So this is just the stock ready to go ECU that's had bats and stuff deleted, so that you plug it in and you can start up the stock swap. If you have a cam swap and you try to use this bone stock style swap computer, it will not work. Your engine will either not run or it won't run great. It'll do both. What else? So we got fuel pump, we got computer, we got motor mounts. Yeah, if these, you just go to Amazon and you type in LS swap plates, and you will see them. They're all the same exact design. They'll just be different brands. And then over here, I got a bunch of the stuff stashed away in the car to leave me a little bit of space in the garage. But we got fuel line. This is just Amazon PTFE -6AN fuel line. This is what I run on basically everything. I used to just run rubber hose, but I used this once, and this is all I will use again, simply because it was really easy to use, and it obviously is going to last a lot longer than rubber hose. All you do, it comes with these fittings with it. You don't have to buy them extra. Let me show you the actual fitting for. Well, gotta dig in the candy jar. So it's just that end. You take it, go to this end, and you just press it on. Press and screw it lefty loosey, and it just tightens up like that. And then you also get, so you'll get something that looks like this, and this fitting goes on the actual fuel rail. So this is getting an LS1 intake, and trying to basically, you unscrew this end that looks like a horseshoe, and it's just connects right behind this lip, and then you screw the actual fitting onto that end that you unscrewed, and then that's how you connect your fuel line from the fuel tank to the fuel rail. It'll be the same on this end. Well, yeah. Well, no, I gotta get a. Sorry, I gotta get a. Just remembered, I gotta get an external fuel filter. So disregard that. But yeah, that's how that goes. Connect this to the fuel rail, or even your truck fuel rail. It doesn't matter. It's made for both. And then you just run that line from your fuel pump to your filter to your fuel rail. It's that simple. And we got the harness. So this one got a BP harness. This is what it looks like. It's loomed. So this looming is like an extra $100. This is quite a bit more pricey than the Amazon harnesses I always tell everybody to use, because they're stupid cheap and they work perfectly fine. This one, I mentioned it in another video. I preferred this harness for him because, one, it looked nicer, and he's going with brand new everything. He wants this to look show quality nice. So also, him not being familiar with LS stuff, this comes with the it tells you what each sensor is, and I wanted that for him because he's many hours away from me, and if something happens, say a sensor on the intake goes out, I can say, well, check your TPS sensor or your IAC, and he can just come over here and say, well, here's your TPS, throttle position sensor, and then IAC should be this one. Yeah, idle air control. I'm trying to show you. Idle air control valve. Yep, I know I was right. Idle air control. Say he's having issues with it stalling or something. I say, check your IAC or your TPS, and he can be like, oh, okay, where's the TPS? And then he goes and looks at this, and he's like, bam, okay, there it is. Rather than Amazon harness that doesn't have these, I probably got to take a picture of one and circle it. Just makes it easier for the customer. Also, these are good quality too, so that helps. And then the thing I like the most about it is this fuel pump. All you do is you take the wire from I should have put these all together so I don't gotta keep walking back and forth and make this video any longer than needs be. Take that gray wire from the harness and connect it to your power, which is this gray one. Oh, sorry, no, well, it's still the gray one, but this is the end. So this plugs to this end, and these are your main wires, and you just run that gray wire from the fuel pump and you just connect it to the gray wire right there, and that's it. And then your fuel pump turns on wherever you hook up your ignition wire for the relay, or yeah, for the relays, and just to turn everything on, which would be your key, I assume, or switch, whichever. So when you flip that switch, you turn that key, your fuel pump turns on and it primes, and it's already connected to this relay, so you don't have to do nothing else. Easy peasy. And then oil pan, that's a big one. So got us a knockoff Holley 302-2. I explained why we do this, or why we use this one. I would use this one on any rear wheel drive, front steer, LS swap. It's the most clearance you can get from any oil pan out there, unless you got some like a Batwing oil pan from a C5 vet, which is those are pretty hard to find and somewhat expensive. But this low profile, it also has extra clearance from where the drop starts to where it, well, basically your F body pan would probably, let me see if I can. I know, I've said this a million times, but I always got new viewers, so I want to make sure I'm always reiterating stuff. So your F-body pan, that used to be the pan to go with for low profile with swaps. Your F-body pan, the drop starts about there. They started making these Holley 302-2s to have more steering clearance, in Chevelles was the main one that I come across. But it starts farther back, so you got more steering clearance with your steering linkage. And this comes with everything. This is your block off plate, all the bolts to bolt it on, your drain pan. These, now the difference on these is oil filter. Why do you keep wanting to fly away, gasket? Your oil filter. So that oil filter, where it screws in right there, that will actually be bigger than a factory style Gen 3 oil pan. These will take these aftermarket ones, and by aftermarket ones I mean practically any of them. It doesn't have to just be this specific one, but these will actually take a Gen 4 oil filter. So I just go into O'Reilly's and I get a oil filter for a 2008 Chevy GMC truck or SUV. I believe cars are different, not 100% sure. I always get the trucks and SUVs and have no issues. But there's that. You go to Amazon and you type in Holley 302-2, and it's like 200. No, I think it was like only $170 or something like that, which is crazy compared to what it used to be when you could only get them from Holley. They're like $440. So yeah. And then we got this cross member for the transmission. I used it in the last Camaro. Ordered it from Summit, but it's from CPP. It's on this side. This is it. It's like $200. It is well worth it than trying to mess with the stock cross member. This one, like I mentioned in the last Camaro video, this one actually drops the transmission down a little bit, which works much better with the Speed Engineering long tube headers. If you try to use the stock cross member that's in this now, these headers will sit right, say this is the bottom of the floor pan, the headers will sit right there. So you can't get any type of pipe up over the header pipe because it sits so close. This one, it was sitting about right there. It dropped it down to like here, so you could actually put your exhaust on, and it didn't. There was no issues with pinion angle or anything, which I assume if you're car savvy, you would have thought that as soon as I mentioned it dropping the transmission down. This isn't part of it, but I have to show this every single time. If you're running an automatic transmission, you have, especially 4060, you have to run a very good external transmission cooler. And this is the one I run on all of them. For reference, like I've said before, I have this in my CUDA, and it is usually 8 million degrees here every day in Texas, especially during the summer. And I run this without the fan at the front, you know, behind the grill, so it's getting airflow when I'm driving. This is this is only 150 bucks, and it should be like 500 bucks because that's how great of a transmission cooler this is, or oil cooler, or whichever you want to use it for. But I daily drive the CUDA here in Texas, stoplights, stop signs, traffic, whatnot, and my transmission temp stays, I'd say, a minimum of 30 to 35 degrees lower than my coolant temp. And so basically it sits around 120, 130 degrees, which is great for summertime here in Texas. So if you live somewhere where it's cooler, the temp's gonna be even lower, and it's gonna be 100 times better. Low transmission temps is what saves 4L60s most of the time. If you're dogging on them, or if you're pulling 10,000 pounds a day with them, I mean, not much is gonna help. But we did fuel, harness, computer, motor mounts, transmission, oil pan, and I threw in the trans cooler. That should be it as far as just bolting it in. That's to get the engine bolted in, put in, transmission put in, fuel system hooked up, wired up, engine wired up, hooked up to the computer, and you can run it, turn on, start it. I know you're like, oh yeah, I wish it was that simple. Once you do one, I'm telling you, if you just do one swap, the next time you do it, it's like, it's a million times faster. It is labor intensive, especially here in the 105 degree heat with 70% humidity. But as far as like the knowledge of what you have to do, there's not as much unknown, because I know when you first get to a swap, or you get to anything car related and you haven't done it before, you're not worried about the work that you're going to do. You're worried about the unknown of the work that you're going to do, if that makes sense. I'm trying to explain it how I would see it, but I'm weird, so it might be different. But hopefully you guys just watch my videos and it helps you guys. It's the only reason I started making these videos. I don't care if you subscribe. It doesn't matter. I just want to help people out that try to do this themselves, because this is how I learned. It's trial and error, and that's the best way to learn. You guys just watch my YouTube videos and you watch me learn through trial and error, and you learn from that and not have to go through the BS I go through. But next video, which is going to be a minute, is finally starting the swap on the Camaro. We're still waiting on the engine from O'Reilly's, so this next video probably won't come out for weeks, but hopefully you got a Camaro, Nova, Ventura. I swear there was something else that was like those that this would work on, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But appreciate y'all watching. Hope this helps. If you got any questions, please watch my other videos first before you ask me the same question many times. But even if you do, it's all right. I'll answer you. So I'll see y'all on the next video. The swap of the Camaro.